Think about the first 15 minutes of your morning. You probably don't even realize it, but the specific English words you choose to describe those 15 minutes tell the world a lot about your personality.
Oh, it's so true. It reveals like your pace of life, your habits, and honestly, how much control you really have over your day.
Right. And that's exactly why we're digging into today's source material. Welcome to this deep dive, by the way. Today we have a transcript of a conversation between two people, Sarah and Mark.
Yeah, and they're basically breaking down the exact English phrases, the daily vocabulary, and the practical grammar you need to describe your daily life.
And what I love about this is that it isn't some dry, dusty grammar textbook.
Far from it. I mean, it's a highly natural conversation. By analyzing how Sarah and Mark talk about their habits, we get a clear window into how people actually live.
Exactly. And more importantly, the modern natural English they use to describe it.
Right, because textbooks often give you these rigid formulas, but real life is just much more fluid.
It really is. So our mission today is to help you, the listener, move beyond just memorizing vocabulary. We want you to understand the mechanics behind the words so you can tell the story of your own day with confidence.
And we're keeping it accessible, too, very practical.
Totally. But to really understand how to talk about your day, we can't just jump into the middle of afternoon meetings or evening traffic. We have to start at ground zero, the exact moment the brain turns on.
The early morning hours, I mean, this is where we immediately see the first major differences in how people structure their lives.
Yeah, and the very specific verbs they use to capture those differences.
Right. So in our source document, Sarah and Mark have mornings that look completely different. Sarah is like a serious early bird. She's up at 5:30 a.m.
Wow, 5:30.
Yeah. While Mark, on the other hand, has his alarm set for 7:00 a.m.
But here's the part that really caught my attention. Mark brings up a vital linguistic distinction right out of the gate. He highlights the massive difference between the phrase wake up and the phrase get up.
Oh, that's a huge one.
Honestly, I used to think those were just synonyms that people swapped out randomly.
A lot of people do, but they are fundamentally different actions. In English, wake up simply means your eyes are open. You're no longer sleeping.
Right, you could just be lying there.
Exactly. It's that initial, often involuntary mental transition from sleep to awareness. You can wake up and still be lying flat on your back in the dark.
But get up is different.
Yeah, get up is a physical commitment. It means you are actually moving your body out from under the blankets and leaving the bed.
I've always thought of it like a computer. Like, waking up is the software booting up, the screen turns on, the system is loading, you're aware of the world.
Oh, I like that.
But getting up, that's the hardware actually moving. That's, the printer printing and the fan spinning.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it. And Mark gives us a great real-world example in the transcript. He mentions that he wakes up at 7 a.m. when his alarm goes off, but he doesn't actually get up until 7:15 a.m.
And the reason?
He lies in bed for 15 minutes just looking at messages on his phone.
Which is something basically everyone does now, right?
Oh, absolutely. Sarah agrees with him, noting she checks her messages and the weather before she finally gets up.
But let's dig into the why here. I mean, why do these tiny distinctions matter so much when you're learning a language? If someone just says, I wake up and shower, people still understand them perfectly fine.
Sure, they do.
So why bother separating the software from the hardware, so to speak?
Well, because language is about painting a vivid picture for your listener. When you separate wake up from get up, you're giving the listener a much more detailed, relatable view of your life.
Oh, I see.
It shows you have genuine control over the language. You aren't just reporting raw data, you're describing the texture of your morning. It transforms like a robotic schedule into a human story.
You're inviting them into the reality of the morning struggle.
Exactly.
So after they finally get out of bed, we transition into the morning rituals. And both of our characters find common ground on one crucial element, which is coffee.
Of course.
Yeah.
Sarah calls herself a coffee person, and Mark admits he can't really function without it.
Notice the specific verbs they use to describe this part of the morning, too. While the coffee is brewing, which is the passive process of the machine making the coffee, Sarah says she washes her face and brushes her teeth.
Right, so we're looking at ambient actions happening in the background while active tasks are completed in the foreground.
But the way they handle the rest of their mornings reveals totally different paces of life. Take showering, for example.
Yeah, Mark takes a shower in the morning because he says it helps him feel awake. He uses it as an energy boost.
And Sarah?
She showers at night to relax, so in the morning, her routine is streamlined. She simply gets dressed.
And we see that same difference in personality reflected in their breakfasts and the verbs they pair with their food. Sarah takes her time. She eats toast or a bowl of cereal.
While Mark is rushing, he uses the verb grab. He says he grabs a banana or a protein bar.
I really love the verb grab here. It implies so much kinetic energy. You don't casually sit down at a table with a napkin to grab a banana.
No, not at all. You take it with your hand while your feet are already moving toward the door.
It implies speed and motion. And that motion signifies a major shift in the daily routine. The private morning rituals are done, the coffee cup is empty, and your brain has to make a fundamental shift.
You're moving from your private life into public life, and the English you use has to adapt to that new environment.
Right, you're stepping out the front door. So let's look at commutes and how these two navigate the middle of their day. Mark leaves his house at 8:30 a.m., and he doesn't drive a car.
Instead, he takes the bus, which usually takes him about 20 minutes, and he uses that time to listen to music or read.
The verb choice here is super important. Take is incredibly common for public transit. In English, we take the bus, we take the train, we take a taxi.
Yeah, it represents a passive form of travel compared to the active responsibility of driving. Because Mark is taking the bus, his hands and mind are free, allowing him to relax with his music.
Now, Sarah's situation is completely different, and it brings up a really interesting vocabulary debate. She works from home.
Right.
In the transcript, she claims her commute is just the short walk from her bedroom to her desk. Now, I have to challenge that a bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
If there's no traffic, no bus, no weather to deal with, can we really call walking down the hallway a commute?
It's a great question, and I think it highlights how language evolves alongside culture. Traditionally, a commute absolutely meant traveling a significant physical distance between your home and your workplace.
Right, like physically moving across town.
Exactly. But with modern work-from-home routines becoming a global standard, the definition is softening. For Sarah, the commute isn't a physical journey anymore, it's a psychological one.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that walk from the bedroom to the desk is the mechanism she uses to shift her brain from home mode to work mode.
So the vocabulary is adapting to our new realities. I suppose if your brain feels like it's commuting, the word fits.
Totally.
So Sarah finishes her mental commute, sits at her desk, and starts her workday at 9:00 a.m. Her morning is full of checking emails and sitting in meetings, and eventually both of them hit the middle of the day.
Right. Around 12:03 or 1:00 p.m., they pause for food. Mark usually brings a sandwich from home, or he'll go out with some colleagues to a cafe near the office.
Our source document includes a really helpful language note here. When they talk about this midday meal, they mention you can either say have lunch or you can say eat lunch.
Yes.
Both are correct, but I've always wondered if there's a subtle difference I'm missing there.
Well, they are essentially interchangeable in daily conversation. However, there is a slight nuance. Have lunch often leans a bit more toward the experience of the meal.
Like the social aspect.
Exactly. If you're going out with colleagues, you're having lunch because it includes the socializing, the sitting, the atmosphere. Eat lunch focuses much more strictly on the biological action of consuming the food.
Okay, that makes sense.
But as a learner, you really shouldn't stress over it. Use whichever feels more natural on your tongue.
Right. You might eat a protein bar at your desk, but you have lunch with your friends at a cafe.
Perfect example.
Regardless of how you do it, we all know what happens about an hour later. You get back to your desk, you stare at your computer screen, and suddenly your eyelids feel like they weigh 20 pounds. The dreaded afternoon slump.
Oh yeah, it's a universal biological rhythm. The body's energy naturally dips in the mid-afternoon.
It's the worst.
It is. Mark mentions this hits him pretty hard. His solution is, well, pretty utilitarian. He just drinks a second cup of coffee just to stay focused until his workday finishes at 5:00 p.m.
He's just using caffeine as a bridge to get to the finish line. And when that clock finally hits 5:00 p.m., the structured workday dissolves. The environment changes again, the rules change, and the vocabulary takes another hard turn.
We're entering personal time. This transition into the evening requires a different set of verbs because our underlying goals are changing. We're moving away from productivity and shifting toward unwinding, maintenance, and eventually preparing for the next cycle.
Following Mark and Sarah after work, we see two totally different approaches to this transition. Mark doesn't head straight home. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, he hits the gym.
While Sarah prefers a different kind of movement, she goes for a walk in the park because she wants fresh air after being trapped inside all day.
They're both creating a buffer zone between work and home, active physical exertion for Mark and passive environmental unwinding for Sarah.
Exactly. And by about 6:30 p.m., they're both home, and the focus shifts to the evening meal.
Sarah mentions she genuinely loves cooking. For her, making pasta or a stir-fry is the highlight of the evening. And there's a detail in the source that I think is brilliant for our listeners.
Oh, the podcast thing.
Yes. While Sarah cooks, she listens to podcasts. Mark chimes in and points out that you can easily practice your English listening skills while doing the dishes or cleaning up the house.
It's highly practical advice, you know? You're immersing yourself in the language during tasks that don't require heavy cognitive load. Your hands are busy, but your brain is free to absorb English.
I see this as a classic example of habit stacking. Think about the concept of a chore. Doing the dishes is a chore. It's monotonous.
All right.
But if you combine that boring chore with something genuinely interesting, like listening to a deep dive about language, you completely change the nature of the task. You're layering a rewarding habit over a mandatory one.
It completely reorients your mental framework. You aren't just scrubbing pots anymore. You're actively improving your English fluency. The dishwashing just happens to be what your hands are doing at the time.
It's a great mental trick. So the dishes are clean, and it's time for true relaxation. Sarah's go-to is watching a TV show or a movie on Netflix.
While Mark leans toward playing video games and surfing the internet, but Mark highlights a specific boundary he sets for himself.
Right, the screen time rule.
Yeah, he tries to avoid screens right before his 11:00 p.m. bedtime. Instead, he reads a physical book for 10 minutes so he can fall asleep faster.
That transition from screen to book sets up a really important linguistic distinction. He uses the phrase fall asleep. Notice he doesn't say go to sleep or go to bed.
That's a great catch. Going to bed is the physical action of walking into the bedroom and getting under the blankets. Falling asleep is the actual biological moment your brain shuts down and crosses over into unconsciousness.
It's exactly like the difference between waking up and getting up, the physical action versus the biological state.
It really is.
But wait, all of this rigid organization, the 7 a.m. alarms, the coffee bridges, the gym schedules, that's just Monday through Friday. When Saturday morning arrives, there's a dramatic pivot.
Oh, the weekend routine effectively throws out all the rules of the weekday routine. Mark readily admits his weekends look completely different.
On Saturdays, Mark is nowhere near an alarm clock. He doesn't wake up until 10:00 a.m. And he uses a fantastic piece of vocabulary to describe this. He says he loves to sleep in.
Yes, sleep in is a vital phrasal verb for English learners to keep in their back pocket. It means intentionally sleeping later than your usual time.
Intentionally being the key word.
Exactly. It's a luxury. You aren't oversleeping by accident because your alarm broke. You're choosing to stay in bed because society doesn't require you to be anywhere.
You're in your pajamas, there's no rush, and you eventually wander into the kitchen for something called brunch. Now, we see brunch everywhere in Western culture, but linguistically, it's a pretty interesting concept.
It is. Linguistically, it's a portmanteau, which is just a blend of the words breakfast and lunch.
Right.
Culturally, it's a large, relaxed, mid-morning meal. Sarah talks about making pancakes, eggs, and bacon. You eat it late enough in the morning that it effectively replaces both of your early meals in one sitting.
It's the ultimate weekend luxury. But Mark points out that the weekend isn't just about pancakes and sleeping in. He says it's also when he has the time to do chores.
There's that word again.
Yeah. He does the laundry and goes grocery shopping. Sarah has a great definition for chores in the transcript. She calls them the boring but absolutely necessary jobs we have to do around the house, like cleaning the bathroom or vacuuming the rug.
Right. Your life still requires basic maintenance, even on your days off. But Mark balances those chores by hanging out with friends or catching a movie at the cinema. It paints a picture of a really well-rounded week.
Okay, so we've successfully mapped out the entire life cycle of a week, from the aggressive 5:30 a.m. wake-up on Monday to the lazy Sunday brunch.
We have.
But here is the most important question for you, the listener. How do you actually use this to describe your own life? How do you link all these actions together so you don't sound like a robot reading a grocery list?
Well, this is where we get to the absolute goldmine of the source document, which is the communicator's toolkit.
Yes.
Sarah and Mark step back and share some incredibly practical grammar and sequencing strategies to help learners organize all these daily actions smoothly.
Mark issues a really cool challenge in the transcript. He says you can describe your entire day clearly just by relying on 4 simple words. First, then after that, and finally.
I love this part.
For example, he says, first I wake up, then I have coffee, after that I go to work, finally I come home.
Linguists call these sequence words or transition signals.
So, as our expert guide, help me understand why these 4 simple words make such a massive difference. Honestly, they seem almost too basic. Do fluent speakers really rely on them that much?
They absolutely do, and here's why they matter so much. When you're speaking a new language, especially when describing a sequence of events, there's a tendency to panic.
Sure.
Learners often try to use massive, complicated vocabulary to prove they're fluent. But if you just list actions like I wake up, I eat, I commute, I work, I sleep, it sounds completely unnatural.
It's disjointed.
Exactly. By inserting first, then, and after that, you're building a bridge between your thoughts. You act as a guide for your listener. It proves that you don't need a dictionary full of complex words to be a highly effective communicator. You just need clear, logical organization.
It's like you're giving the listener signposts, so they never get lost in your story. Clarity wins over complexity every single time.
Always.
Now, Sarah and Mark also take time to highlight a few common traps that learners fall into when talking about their routines. I want to make sure we cover those so our listeners can avoid them.
Yeah, that's important. The first major trap involves the verb go. Sarah points out that a lot of learners will say, I go to home at the end of the day.
Ah, yes.
But in English, that's incorrect. You simply say, I go home. You completely drop the preposition to.
This one trips up so many people. Because you say you go to the office or go to the gym or go to the supermarket. Why on earth does home get special treatment?
It really comes down to how the word functions grammatically in that specific sentence. In the phrase, go home, the word home isn't actually acting as a noun, it's acting as an adverb of direction.
Oh, an adverb?
Yeah, think about words like upstairs or outside or abroad. You wouldn't say, I go to outside.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've honestly never thought about it like that.
Exactly. Home functions the exact same way. It's a direction or a state of being, not just a physical building you're navigating toward. So no to, just go home.
That is such a helpful way to remember it. What's the next trap they mention?
It relates back to our meals. Learners frequently add possessive pronouns where they just aren't needed. They might say, I eat my breakfast, or she eats her lunch.
Right.
Mark clarifies that natural English usually drops the possession. We just say, I eat breakfast.
Because it's redundant, right?
Right.
Unless you're sneaking into the fridge and eating your roommate's breakfast, we already assume the breakfast belongs to you.
Exactly. It's assumed context. You don't need to legally claim ownership of your toast every morning. Just eat breakfast, save your breath, and drop the extra words.
Keep it lean and natural. And finally, they bring up the critical grammar rule that every English learner hears on day one, but we all need a reminder about because it's so easy to forget in the middle of a fast conversation.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Sarah says, whatever you do not forget the third person S.
Yes. This is the bane of many learners' existence. If you are talking about yourself, it's simple. I wake up, I drink coffee. But the moment you start talking about a friend, a partner, or a colleague, the verb has to change.
It must become he wakes up, or she drinks coffee, or Mark goes to work.
If you're listening right now, you've probably forgotten that little S 1,000 times.
Definitely. And you're probably wondering why English even bothers with it, considering I wake and he wake convey the exact same meaning to the listener.
It's true. The meaning is understood either way. It's largely a historical leftover in the language. But practically speaking, hitting that S consistently is a massive signal to the person you're speaking with.
How so?
It shows a high level of grammatical control. It's the difference between someone who is just trying to survive a conversation and someone who has truly mastered the rhythm of the language.
It's a tiny letter, but it carries a lot of weight. And Sarah wraps up their discussion with the most practical piece of advice of all: consistency is the secret.
Absolutely.
Practicing these sentences, stringing these sequence words together, even for just 5 minutes a day, is what builds real confidence over time.
It makes perfect sense. Routine practice is the only way to master the vocabulary of your daily routine. They reinforce each other.
They really do. So let's pull all these threads together. What have we actually uncovered today by analyzing Sarah and Mark's transcript? We've learned that talking about your daily routine isn't just about reciting a boring checklist of activities.
No, it's about mastering highly practical, everyday verbs. It's about understanding the subtle mechanical differences between waking up and getting up, or knowing when to use active versus passive travel vocabulary.
And it's about using those sequence words, those vital signposts, to turn a list of tasks into a smooth, compelling story about your day.
It's the story of your life, really, told one day at a time.
It is. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with a slightly philosophical question to ponder. Something to chew on while your coffee's brewing tomorrow morning.
Oh, I like where this is going. What's the thought?
Think about it this way. If our daily routines are just patterns that we repeat over and over again, every single week, how much of your personality is actually defined by what you do on autopilot?
Wow.
Are you defined by your morning coffee? Are you defined by your evening walk? And here's the real kicker. Does learning to describe your day in a brand new language actually force you to slow down and notice the beautiful, simple details of your own life that you usually take for granted?
That's a profound way to look at language learning. You're right. When you have to translate your life, the invisible automatic parts of your day suddenly become visible again.
You have to look closely at your life to find the right words for it. So here's your challenge. Starting tomorrow morning, the exact moment your eyes open, I want you to try describing your day in English inside your head.
Yeah. Tell yourself what you're doing, use the specific verbs, lean on those sequence words.
Notice when you wake up and notice when you finally decide to get up.
Exactly. Take control of the narrative.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Keep practicing, stay curious about the little things, and we'll catch you next time.